And yeah, so that
How
was funny.
how were conditions comfortable? Your Quonset condition
Oh
housing
yeah,
was
it was
comfortable.
yeah, we lived in Quonset huts.
Uh huh.
Yeah, we lived in Quonset huts, and they were fine as far as I was concerned. Yeah, we had the double bunk up and down, and I chose the top, so I was up on top, and I can remember no discomfiture at all,
Okay.
really.
Good.
Somehow they managed to keep them warm, I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
and the going out and by the time we left there, the Quonset huts, uh, we had on the toaster oven suit and the big bulky sheep line suits. So whether it was raining, let it rain. We had
Hmm.
about 4 inches between us and the rain. And
Wow.
the weather. And they drove us out to the plane. There's your plane. And take off. So.
Now I see your jacket behind you here, a little cheeser. Was that the name of your plane, or what's or was that the squadron you were in?
Yeah, that's a personal story too.
Okay.
And when we landed in England, we had given up our plane that we ferried over, so we were given another plane. And then at that time, we had not gotten together and given a name to our plane, like Blondie or some
Right.
other crazy thing, a name of a town or something. And one day was reading a magazine, heaven knows what it was, and down at the bottom of the magazine was this cheese ad, and there was this Disney mouse riding a bomb, and they were advertising a cheese. So I think they called him Little Cheeser too. And I showed it to the guys. And I said, would you buy this? Can we name the thing Little Cheese? And finally, with no question at all, they all said okay, and that became Little Cheeser, and that became our plane name. And we all had this thing painted on our jackets.
Wow.
This is not the original,
Yeah.
although the original still exists. My son Rich had this reproduced in the States here, and the artist did a pretty good job of it. And that's how the mouse. I don't think the cheese people ever realized that their product was flying over Germany at the time. I never told them either. I should. Who was the cheese people anyway? Begins with a K.
Kraft.
Who? Kraft. That's it. Kraft. Yeah, it was a Kraft ad.
Wow.
It was a Kraft cheese ad. Yeah.
Do you have any particular? Was there any missions that you can think of that were pretty hairy and that?
Oh yeah.
That stick out. I mean, any in particular?
Any mission that led to an oil depot, we knew was going to be bad. Was going to be bad, and long too, because most of them were in the eastern part of Germany, and like over Poland and Romania, places like
far.
Police. I remember Police well. We went to Police at least twice.
Oh,
Did I remember? And that was bad. You're going to Police. You're going to that. And I felt sorry for Cologne. I felt like I was on a bus schedule to Cologne. We must have made 4 or 5 trips to Cologne, and the reason poor Cologne took a beating was because it was in the western part of Germany, and it was a railroad depot, and the thinking was if they don't have tracks, they can't run railroads. So we went over there every 2 or 3 weeks, But there again, they were good. They must have had armies of workers, because I'm sure within 48 hours of our bombing, they had that depot back together again.
Wow.
So Koblenz, Koblenz wasn't happy with the 8th Air Force, but the parts people too was. And of course, the worst missions that the Air Corps flew were the 2 missions that they flew down to southern Germany to the ball bearing plants. and I miss those. They were the early part of '42, and
Yeah. So it sounds like you.
those kids had nothing.
Wow. And
Nowhere, they were too far away for the 51. Oh no, 351s didn't exist at the time.
Yeah.
For what was it, Schwarzkopf? Anyway, the Bulberry plants. They made 2 trips down there, and I don't really know. I don't think they knocked the Bulberry plants out.
Wow.
So that was pretty bad, and so I can't give you the dates.
Yeah, that's fine.
And but in '42, from mid '42 to '43 and early '44, there must have been about a year and a half of it was really rough. The guns were in place, the 88s were in place, so you had to fly over France for French targets to get to the German targets. And anything of any respect was filled with 88 guns, flak guns, and so it wasn't until the guys on the ground made it easy for us. We had to fly over less territory that was lined with guns, because when they pulled back their guns too. So we knew it was a parts base or an oil field, the guns were there. They had brought them back there.
Wow.
So, but there were a lot of times when we called them milk runs.
Yeah.
And the early part of when the boys started going through the France and Germany, and we were dropping bombs in front of them. For us, they were milk runs. Because number one, as I remembered, the anti-aircraft guns weren't there, because the guys on the ground were forcing them to pull back.
Yeah.
And in '42, I don't remember. There was no planes in the air to give us any heartaches. Anyway, some other pieces. We had so many planes in the air that maybe other units, and you had to be in the right unit at the right time, or the wrong unit at the wrong time.
Yeah, right.
For that.
Wow.
So, but I consider myself very lucky. I consider myself.
Well, I can't imagine what was going through your mind when those wheels touched down on the airstrip at the end of your 35th mission. It's like, I made it through this thing.
Oh yeah. Well, in a way, we knew that in the early '44, we knew pretty much after about a half hour after we left our targets, the flak targets, that it had to be a real bad day. But we were home free over that, because number one, that's why I say those kids who were in the P-51s who would beat the Luftwaffe. Yes, the Luftwaffe did come up, and the Luftwaffe did knock out planes. But again, if you were in the right formation, you didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, but still, setting aside the Luftwaffe and the 88s, it was still dangerous flying. Like you talked about earlier, getting into formation and flying so close. Mechanical errors. It was even milk runs.
Oh yeah.
Certainly were not safe, by any means.
Yeah. I imagine, a lot of people had to worry about that, but really, I had complete faith on Cooper.
Wow.
And to get us up and get us back, and he did get a DFC for getting us back with 2 engines. Of course, I said, why don't you hang a right and drop us off in Brussels? We can hang out the rest of the war in Brussels. But no, he brought us back, and that's when we landed at this British thing. And that's the funniest thing about that. As far as I'm concerned, the British Army ran on Brussels sprouts. The whole field smelled of Brussels sprouts. I haven't touched a Brussels sprout since that day. I won't touch it. And yes, so they had their fields. I can't believe the number of planes that on any hour, on any given day, were parked in England. You know, yeah, someday I should read up on it and find out where we were.
Wow.
Because, I mean, they took over farm after farm after farm after farm. And fortunately, they had bombers that could land in, you know, on shorter runs than the B-29s and the B-51s right now. And so we had no trouble taking on. Well, yeah, we had no trouble. You know, if we had 4 good engines and coming back with 4 good engines, or even 2. The B-17 could land with. We landed with 2. You know, so yeah. But yeah, it was quite a trip.
Yeah.
Quite a trip.
So you finished your 35th mission. You've completed your missions.
In early January of '45.
And then how much longer were you in England before you shipped back home then?
Well, that was kind of a silly story. Well, a story too. Very democratic about it. I understand that how you got back to the States was on a kind of a your name was pulled out of a hat.
No, so it wasn't like the ground troops with points and what have you. It was
no. We flew back, or we took a ship back.
Yeah.
And I think Cooper, the pilot, and the co-pilot actually took a ship back to the States, whereas the ball turret man, me, flew back.
Oh, you did. So you never had to cross the ocean.
No,
oh, okay.
I flew back, and that's one of the greatest memories that I have is coming back and landing north of New York City,
Wow.
you know, and coming down north to say LaGuardia Field or JFK, passing over Boston and seeing all the lights in Boston on a clear night and saying, my God, there is New York City. Only a few minutes later to be flying over New York, and Boston looked like a T-town compared to New York City. And I was able to look down and say, hey, that's the subway that I took from the Bronx into Manhattan.
Oh boy!
It was quite a, yeah. I wish I had a video of that flight coming in.
Wow!
Yeah, and it was really quite a flight, that home flight. Yeah, but it was quite democratic. Some of us flew home, and other guys had to take a ship home. And as I remember, your name was just pulled out of a hat as to who went where.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a great flight home.
Yeah.
And I forget now, Camp Upton, something like that. I think I was, they discharged me from Camp Upton, you know, and we, in the Air Corps, with we had air medals, you know, and 5 of those, and the air medals and the time overseas, and they gave us credit for being, like there was D-Day, and then there was the France and Germany and blah, blah, blah. And we happened to be just there between the end of one flight and the beginning of another flight. So they gave me credit for 4 war battles.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you remember coming home, reunion, seeing your folks?
Not very much. Nothing about it. Actually, the silliest thing I remember was, again, my brother had signed up while I was overseas, and I found out he had signed up with the Navy, and he wound up in San Diego on an AE, and I think that's the only thing that saved his life was the fact that he was assigned to it, because he hated Navy food. He would not eat it. And his story is that the AE couldn't stay out that long and had to keep on coming back. And he used to line up and put 20 pounds of sugar on that, bring it on board, and candy. And that's how he subsided.
Oh, jeez.
And then the ironic part about it, when they discharged him in San Diego and put him on a train, he got sick on the way home. He arrived back in New York sick in a dog on the food that he was worried about. Yeah, but he was at an AE. Yeah, but
and what did you do then after you got discharged? I mean, how was that transition, going from being in the military and those 35 flights and everything you did, back to civilian life, was it much of a transition for you to get used to again?
No, it really wasn't. It really wasn't. I went back to the same apartment in the Bronx that I had left, all right? And the one thing that made it easy for us, somehow in the Our Lady of Angels church, they had a basement, and somebody started a club, a veterans club, a men's club there. And we congregated there once a week, I think, on Friday nights. And we had this club there. And it was surprising how many marriages really initiated from that club.
Is that right?
Because the club, I don't know, the ladies came, the girls came, and girls brought their girlfriends there. And if I had a list in front of me, I could think of a bunch of them.
Is that where you met your wife?
No.
No.
No. That was the funniest thing. Actually, I met when I had met some people, and we through the years, in addition to the men's club, I had some people. I had taken up skiing at the time. God's worst wild skier. Don't ask my son how I skied, but anyway. And we used to go skiing, and we got to know each other through skiing. Had never known each other before the war or anything else like that. And there's Shotland. There was a couple named Chris and Stan Shotland. Got to know them. Through them, got to know a few other people. And one day they said, we have tickets to the Army-Navy game. I said, okay, well, where is it being played? In Philadelphia. So they had tickets on the 50-yard line, on the last row on the 50-yard line, okay? So I went with my date. Wynn went with her date, okay? We weren't dating.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what chemistry happened, but at that moment, we left there, and from there, we went to a party back in the Bronx.
Jeez.
And I took my date home, went back to the party, and took my wife home. And that's how that went.
Wow.
At a Army-Navy party.
I'll be darned.
Last football game I saw. Really, first and last Army-Navy game.
Yeah.
And there was a good seat.
Yeah.
Couldn't see anything up there.
Yeah.
Like 40 miles away. I was closer to a ball turret, to a target, than I was to a football game from up there. But yeah, so I started skiing, and that helped everything. And the money wasn't there, so another one. What was his name again? But anyway, a tall 6-foot guy. I don't know. Somehow I always wound up with first-class friends who were 6 foot tall or better. And anyway, so he was moving up to a better class of skis equipment. So I said, "Do you want mine?" He said, "I'll sell them to you. $10, you can have the whole thing." So I'm about 5'6" at the time, and he was 6'2". So I had skis that was 4 feet longer than I should have had, with bindings, and bindings that they were torture chambers. You bent down, you put them on, and then you held your breath that they were going to hold on. And I learned to ski by following him down the trails when I could follow him, and he put up with me. But and I fall about a dozen times out in a ski slope. But I never had any fear of skiing, because we skied in Big Bromley, Vermont. And we started up there without reservations. And at that time, this was in about 46 or 47, like that. And there were no accommodations, really, at that time. And I can remember sleeping on the floor of different Army, and sleeping anywhere we could find a place. And get up in the morning. And later on we did, and I remember skiing behind a priest and he was reading his Bible, or whatever he read on the way up. He's a good man. But we were desperate because we went up there not knowing what the ski conditions were, not like what they have now. Okay. And Big Bromley, during those years, didn't have that much snow. So I was skiing on conditions here where they closed down the ski slopes. Ice and snow and rain and stuff like that there. I can remember standing on the side of one hill one day, and Chris Schottler, who was a much better skier than I, went by me and said, "Harry, I can't stop." I said, "Okay, good luck." And yeah, so I learned to ski. I never learned to ski. I really didn't. As my son will testify. But yeah, so between the skiing and everything, and the people, coming home was no problem.
And you never had any issues with, with nightmares or flashbacks?
No,
good.
No. Oh, no, flashbacks never bothered me at all.
Yeah, oh, good.
No.
Good.
Oh, once in a while I think about, yeah, we got lucky, but yeah. No.
What did you go on to do as a career then after your service?
Well, I tried engineering, but I didn't have the talent for engineering and the gray mass that I needed for engineering, And so I got a degree from Columbia College, And the only reason I was in Columbia College is because Columbia needed the money. And the class of 49 was, I don't know what percent, a large percentage was vets. And
you used the GI
Bill?
Bill?
Yeah, used the GI, yeah. And we got a stipend for just, being alive, too. And it kept us going. And I left engineering. It wasn't for me. Yeah. And I wound up with a degree, and I wound up in sales, So paper, and then Yellow Pages. And I spent 30 years with Yellow Page.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. Sales, training, management. Yeah. And I got out. I got out at the right time, too.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just a few years before I left, we became, Reuben H. Donnelly became part of the big credit house, Dun & Bradstreet. So I'm really a retiree from Dun & Bradstreet. And then Reuben Donnelly went out of business. But I'm still a retiree from Dun & Bradstreet.
Gotcha.
So I may get out at the right time. And as my son says every once in a while, I've been retired for longer than most people have worked.
Yeah, right.
And I agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't feel badly about it at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, talk a little bit about family. You have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren?
Well, the beginning of the marriage was sad in that I can put it, I married into a family, okay? I had a 5-year-old, that was a brilliant little girl, okay? One was a professional person in the magazine business, okay? And we got married, and we went up into the mountains for a vacation up there, and then I got killed up there. I was close to being killed up there, and I was in a war. We were up there in the hunting season, and while we were up there, somebody turned to my wife and said, "Ma'am, I wouldn't wear that hat if I were you up here. This is the hunting season, and those idiots are out there with guns, and that looks like a rear end of a deer."
Oh, boy.
So we took the hat off. But anyway, that's but anyway, we, at the end of 7 months of being married, I almost became the parent of four women. I married into a family, and we lost twins. We almost lost Winnie too, in a bad birth. Twins decided to come out backwards.
Oh boy!
And she only weighed 90 pounds.
Oh boy!
And she came out weighing 80 pounds from that birth, and yeah. But she's a gutsy little female. And 2 years later, she went back into the business again. Went back to her job. and with the she put the books together. She put the magazines together. She did, and yeah, she was gutsy. She even fought her I don't know what they call it, her manager, the guy, the key guy. She says, "You're going to print the book this way," and she says, "No." And he tried to fire her. And she got the union behind her, which she hadn't joined, and she won. The book was printed her way.
Wow.
Yeah. He was trying to make sales and move a lot of people around and selling first pages to get non-advertisers in there. And she said, "No way. You know, it's not us. They get first position for being with us, you know." And that's the way they did it. Yeah. So,
Wow.
anyway, so then about 2.5 years later, Wynn decided we were going to have another child and produce Rich. And this was an amazing birth, really. I was home, and I got the call, and she called me and said, "Harry, I'm on my way to the hospital." And I said, "Okay, I'll meet you there." And by the time I got there, he was born. No fuss, no mess. Yeah, and yeah. But yeah, we lost the two girls. We lost identical twins.
Oh boy.
At that time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but and we lost her to Parkinson's.
How many years were you married before she passed?
Let's see. 87, something like that. Yeah, we moved up to in 75. I think our migration has taken us from the Bronx to Yonkers to Pleasantville, and that's where we were. And we brought Rich home to Yonkers. He never knew the Bronx, and we went through high school, a grammar school. Yeah, just by sheer coincidence, we took him to Pleasantville.
Yeah.
And he went to Iona High School, and in New Rochelle, and that was in 75. Yeah, 87. Rich, do you remember when Mom died?
87.
87. Yeah, we lost her in 87. Yeah, and
In the spring.
yeah, she actually went to his. He was out here then. He managed to join Hewlett Packard from New York. He drove a second-hand Honda that we gave him as a birthday, a graduation present, and came out here and he sold himself to Hewlett Packard out here, and he was out here, and while I was back in New York, in Pleasantville. Yeah, and yeah. So.
Well, through the years, did you ever have any sort of group reunions or plane reunions? Did you keep in touch with the guys you flew with at all, or?
Well, that was my fault, you know, and there were there were reunions that the 401st Bomb Group had, and I never went to any one of them, you know, and I have pictures of the group, and they have two chairs. They have a group picture, you know, pictures and team pictures, and there were two chairs always missing at each one. The ball turret and the radio man never managed to make any of them. So, and I have pictures. They always sent me pictures and stuff like that there, you know. And the navigator got pretty close to the radio operator, and I have here his missions, and I read his missions, and I said, they don't match up with mine. And then I read it more closely, and I figured out at the beginning of our missions, the pilot and the co-pilot came up with sore throats. So we were grounded. But they plucked him out. They needed navigators, so he was way ahead of us on completing 35 missions
Gotcha.
before us. So his missions didn't tally with my missions. I can't get his missions to agree with mine.
Gotcha.
And he was, and the missions that I have, we always took off, for example, with first, primary, and secondary targets. Okay? So I may have remembered the primary target and put it here, but we were weathered out at the primary target. But he, as a navigator, knew more about the secondary target and where we dropped our bombs. So his missions are for the secondary targets, or maybe a half of those flights, and that's why we don't.
Gotcha.
I think on the police missions and the Cologne missions, we do. My diary missions, the official me, what he had, But yeah, so we don't agree on that score. But yeah, and to the best of my knowledge, I'm the last one.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The last one I knew about, certainly about, was Cooper, the pilot. And 2 years ago, I stopped receiving Christmas cards from him. And that's the only thing.
Wow.
I never called back there. I guess I really didn't want to know.
Right.
And he was next to last.
Right. Wow.
The first guy to go was the healthiest looking one of us all. Was the waist gunner, Charlie Q. And he was a great poker player. And he was invited to poker games that the pilots and co-pilots and those guys had,
Wow.
And he was invited to join them because of his poker playing abilities. Whether he won or lost, I have no idea, but he kept on going. They never invited me. And I was a terrible poker player. I mean, in my bad thing here, I have at least four incidents where I went into a poker, lost 2 pounds again, lost 4 pounds, and finally I gave up. Couldn't win at poker or 21, blackjack.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing one blackjack game. I had a partner, and he played the cards, and I took care of the money. And I think that we played as partner on that thing for 5 or 6 hours.
Wow.
And there were guys walking in the cucumber fields were better paid. we might have won 4 or 5 pounds for the whole night. So I did not win at card playing.
Wow.
In any case. But there were guys that did, though. There was one guy, I remember him completely, and he wasn't over there. He was back in the States. They called him lucky, simply because he couldn't get into a poker game for winning. He just wound up a winner, really. So it's all in the cards, I think.
Yeah.
And
Well, Harry, as we start to wind down this interview,
Sure.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? Any of the stories that kind of floated to the top? And Gail and Rich jump in. Is there anything left out, stories he left out, or any information you want to know to fire away with some questions as well?
Okay. Well, I think we need to make sure we get a picture of that.
Yeah, we'll get that.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that.
United States Army. Well, my diploma. Yeah. Remember I said 3 fields?
Yeah.
They got Roosevelt Field, Mineola is from. Okay, we finished there, and then we went to Jersey. So Jersey isn't on that diploma.
Oh, okay.
Where did you get that from?
We just dug up
Just
this.
dug out some stuff.
Has been in a box for 30 years.
So I was a certified mechanic.
Wow.
You wouldn't want me working on your plane, but I was just... My son would never give me a diploma.
But is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Or I know we probably only got the tip of the iceberg of your story, but do you think anything else to round out to get the story as best we could? Or do you think we've pretty much accomplished what...
Well, I think we've pretty much accomplished,
Yeah.
I got through without any problems whatsoever. Never was sick a day that yes, I'm sorry. Well, yes, I did have one accident, but it had nothing to do with flying. is I got jammed in the top turret of a gun once, and for this thing, I just reading recently where the engineer got also jammed up in the top turret
Oh,
for
that sounds
something
painful.
in the mechanism. The gun
Yeah.
swung around and
Oh.
caught his and caught my elbow, and it was swollen, and the frostbite during the incident, I wound up with swollen toes
Well,
from that.
you mentioned too that your hands get cold. Do you contribute that to your time flying?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I really don't know. I really don't know. I had this neuropathy in my hands. I tried to do something about it, and frankly, it's worse than when I went in.
Huh.
You know, I only had to do the carpal surgery done because I looked at a poster, and the nerve that ran from my hand ran to my shoulder. And at that time, I couldn't sleep on my right side. My shoulder hurt. And I just couldn't sleep on my right shoulder. And so I said, maybe if I got the hand surgery done, it might affect that. And the weirdest thing, the shoulder is fine, the hand is terrible.
Huh.
I have no feeling in these three fingers. I'm constantly dropping stuff here. And this one should be worked on, and I just won't have it done.
Yeah.
That's all. And it's go. And why?
Oh, well, yeah, we'll look at pictures here in a second.
Oh yeah, okay.
Well, that was the St. Louis group you were talking about.
Good.
Where'd you get this?
Just found it in a box.
Found it where?
In a box.
Found it in a box.
Richard brought some stuff like 30 years ago.
This is Washington
Yeah,
University.
we'll get this down. The last question I always have with these interviews, as you look back on your time in the Air Corps and all the 35 missions, everything you went through, how do you look back on that time? Did it change your life, affect your life, play a role in your life at all, or was it just simply a chapter in your life that you went through? How would you answer that?
Well, it's a chapter in my life that led me to the rest of my life. You know, because I had a menial bookkeeping job before I went in. And frankly, my prospects, you know, I had a grammar school education, I had a high school diploma, so I did get my degree. I used my degree to get into sales, really, and I'm not 6'2", you know. I am not going to overpower anybody, you know, and I've been talking a lot, but I never sold a lot by talking. The only way I sold was by listening. I had enough of a background, maybe in engineering or whatever I was doing, and where I listened to people, and from what I heard, I formed questions, and I sold that way. And I think that's what's gotten me through my life.
Yeah, yeah.
That I am a pretty good listener.
Yeah, good.
When you stop me from talking. You know? Yeah. So engineering was not my forte.
Right.
Fortunately, my son got genes from his mother that he could do things intuitively that I couldn't do. I mean, she could put a 4-color print on a round press from a flat picture, and she explained it to me. I could never see it. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And she did it. And I think he does the same thing. He did. He got through math intuitively, I do believe. Really.
Well, your dad served in World War I too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dad did serve in World War One. Yeah.
Did
he
go-
was in the Ardennes.
Oh,
a thing like that.
Did he ever
And-
talk much about it?
No, he didn't, and he didn't. And the reason why is that I don't think he was ever fired upon, but I'm not sure of that whatsoever. Because he was a well-dressed kid, right? I think his commandant saw that in him and made him supply sergeant. So anybody who wanted a pair of socks had to go through Sergeant Maroncelli. And yeah, I have pictures of him.
Wow.
And his Boy Scout, that Boy Scout hat, you know, round thing, you know, and in France. Yeah, so he went through. Yeah,
Wow.
he went through World War I, and he's a naturalized citizen.
All right.
And my grandfather was a naturalized citizen too.
Wow.
Yeah, he was, like I said, my dad got here when he was 6 years old,
Right.
so he had to get naturalized. And I think my paternal grandfather got naturalized too, you know, things like that there.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and my grandfather actually worked, in his later years, he worked on the Statue of Liberty over in maintenance. And then one day somebody said, you have to be a natural born citizen. And he could have lied, I think, but he didn't. He told him he was, they fired him.
Huh.
So he didn't, yeah. And in the Statue of Liberty, it was the last time I was at the Statue of Liberty, visiting him.
Yeah.
But, they was maternal grandparents. I spent a lot of time with them. Yeah.
Well, Harry, I want to thank you for sitting down to tell your incredible story today. But
It's
more importantly, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
All right, thank you. It's a crazy story, Started right here. This is not really a battlefield or a battlefield of any sort, but this is where I took my basic training, on the boardwalk of Atlantic City, New Jersey. This motley crew was a class of air mechanics in Mineola, Long Island. The one thing that stands out from this entire picture, if I can point to it, this gentleman here on the right should never have been in the Army. He was 35 years old, and he was a sickly person. And the only reason he got into the Air Corps was that he was 35 years old and unmarried.
Wow.
Actually, I went through 3 air mechanic schools, and some of these pictures represent the guys, a real great bunch of guys in the schools. The schools were at Mineola, Long Island, and over in New Jersey, and in Roosevelt Field, Long Island. And here is what some of these guys look like as we run through. I think there's that old timer again. On this particular photo, I'm not positive, but I believe we were training in St. Louis, Missouri, to be specialists on this particular plane, the A-25. After finishing my air mechanics training, the Army Air Corps, for their own reasons, invited me to retake a test that I had flunked at the very beginning of my career. And I wound up, after my training as an air mechanic, back in the Air Cadet program, and this is my graduation from the Washington University, where I spent 3 months, become a gentleman, and on my way towards cadet training. Prior to my graduation from the Washington University, this was my graduating class from the A-25 Dive Bomber School in St. Louis, Missouri. I was then transferred from the East St. Louis to West St. Louis, and that picture, the previous picture, was taken at Washington University. During my stay at Washington University, the Air Force decided that we could use some training, flight training. So part of our training at Washington University, we spent 10 hours training in a Piper Cub. It's a Piper Cub that you see in the background of this picture here. It was here that I was pretty sure I was destined not to be a pilot in the Army Air Force. These were some of the close friends I had at Washington University. It was a great bunch of guys there. I was kind of an outcast. Most of the men, boys that were at this school training with me to be gentlemen were from the Midwest, Kansas, Michigan, and Minnesota. Good bunch of guys. I left the 825 training school, mechanical training school, with this bunch of guys here, and we invited this lady to take a picture with her. I cannot give you her name, but these are the guys I trained with just before I left them, and the Air Force transferred me to Washington University.
Okay.
Oh, I'm really surprised at this. I did get a diploma from the United States Army as a certified airplane mechanic, and this is proof positive that I did finish the course. Official document autographed by my commandant that I had passed a course in airplane mechanics successfully. What we have here is a family portrait of the crew of the Little Cheeser. We flew under that name for 35 missions. We have the pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, and navigator in the back, and the 4 gunners up front, and one of them was this BB Shell right here. It was our radio operator. This was Sexton, our engineer and top turret gunner. And this was Charlie Gue, waist gunner. Ralph Lawrence, tail gunner. And this is yours truly right here. Bombardier, Dan Castino, our pilot, Cooper, co-pilot. You're going to hate me. This was our navigator.
Okay.
There's our crew, Cooper, better known as Coop. Okay. This is our co-pilot, Ralph Spancel. George Ellis, our navigator. Benny D'Agostino, our bombardier. Ralph Lawrence, our tail gunner.
I'll figure it out. Figure out an organizational system.
I thought I had them here. No, we've seen them already. Oh, doggone it. Oh, okay. Here we go. Point. Ralph Sexton, our tail gunner and engineer. Our co-pilot, Spancel, and Cooper, our pilot. Big Charlie Gue, our waist gunner. Here's a trio of the gunners. Waist, top, and radio. Gunners Incorporated. These are the 5 gunners that manning the guns. Ralph Lawrence, tail gunner, radio operator. Myself, that's Bernie. That's me, Harry, and over here we have Charlie Sexton, top turret, and Charlie Gue, waist gunner. We should include among the gunners Benny D'Agostini, who was the bombardier, but he also had the front gunner right here, and that's the navigator who was up front also, just behind the pilot and the co-pilot. I'm doing all the talking, but this is Harry J. Maroncelli, the ball turret gunner.
And there you are.
And this is my office. And I'm smiling at the moment, nothing to smile about, but here I am on the ground posing in front of a ball turret. Dressed up, I could look like this, and somebody somewhere along the line called me short stroke. Here is a B-17, one of the 6 that we had to fly in finishing our 35 missions. It's pointing out my office in the wall turret. To finish 35 missions, we required 6 airplanes, but this particular plane was known as the Little Cheeser B-17, and as the picture notes, we did finish 14 missions in this particular B-17. Somehow, I managed to find a newspaper clipping, and it points out the first mission that we took in support of our troops in August 8th, 1944.
That was still in Normandy. There's Caen, so it hadn't moved too far inland.
Oh, no, we dropped, we had 2 or 3 or 4 missions in helping them.
And that's part of the reason we forgot to say in the actual interview that here next month you're going to be receiving the French Legion of Honor from the French government for these missions in France.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. This is not a diploma in a sense, but it is the official paper from the 400 Bomb Group listing the 35 missions that I put in with the Little Cheeser B-17 Bomb Group. For some of us, the missions will be different. We finished at different times for reasons of sickness, but this is my official document.
Boy, that's a nice document to get, that you completed your missions.
This family was instrumental in helping our crew and a bunch of other flyers get through the war. The lady in question here kind of took under her motherly care a bunch of us. That's Mrs. Lacey and her family. She had a boy with the Royal British Army somewhere in the world. We don't know where he was. But while he was fighting, she was doing her bit at home, and she was helping keeping us clean. Thank you, Mrs. Lacey.
Wow.
On leave, 2 neighborhood buddies and myself got together and posed in front of this fake bar room. That's Jack Lowney on the left and Artie Kiriakin on the right. I think that this might have been, these were 2 guys that I took a memorial trip up to the Adirondacks with, and it's some of my favorite stories are involved with these 2. On horseback, on rowboat that failed in the middle of the lake, and horses that almost killed both of us, the 3 of us. But these are 2 old buddies. I know Jake is gone. I'm not sure about Artie Kiriakin.
I'll be darned.
It was Artie Kiriakin's mother's car that we took, and it was the family cabin that we used for about a week. To help us come back to a normal life, this picture here represents a club that met once a week in the basement of the Our Lady of Angels Church in Bronx, New York. It was quite a group. It was, they put on shows and what have you. And the amazing thing about it is from this group picture, I think if I took the time, I would find at least a half a dozen marriages that came out of this club. A good bunch of people. I think I've lost many of them, but a great bunch of people. It helped us come back, really. The photos in front of you here are members of the crew who managed to get to reunions since 1945. The smaller picture represents most of the crew. The 2 chairs represent myself, who's missing, and the other empty chair represents our radio operator, Bernie Sherrill. We never made any one of the reunions. The rest of the crew is there. And the larger picture is Ralph Lawrence on the left, the tail gunner, Sexton, the top turret gunner and engineer in the middle, and on the right is Cooper, our pilot.
Did you get these?
Along the way, from December 4th, 1942 to January of 45, we managed to pick up some memorabilia. And in front of you right now are my Staff Sergeant stripes, the Air Medal with the silver maple leaf cluster, my dog tags, my wings, the 8th Air Force
Insignia.
insignia right there. And surprisingly, right here, we just discovered some of my dad's World War I medals. So we thought we'd include them in, and a good service medal too.
Very good.
Okay. The folks in the United Kingdom have remembered us for the work we did, and at the town of Deanthorpe, where our airfield was, they have put up a memorial, a marble memorial, and listed on on one slab of marble is the members of the Little Cheeser Club. And all the members are listed there: Cooper, Spancel, Ellis, D'Agostini, Sexton, Sherrill, Gue, Maroncelli, and Lawrence. They were kind enough to mention all of us. We must mention, though, that we have recently found out that France is going to award each of us the Legion of Merit. We thank the French for that, too.
Legion of Honor.
I'm sorry, it's not the Legion of Merit, it's the Legion of Honor.
Which is our version of our Medal of Honor. A very, very high honor.
Is it that high?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good, Harry. Thank you.